Hello, my peaceful and profitable entrepreneurs. Happy Wednesday. It is the last Wednesday of the month, so that means today is our free masterclass. So we have a playbook. If you haven't signed up for that, I'll drop the link below. You can still get that. It's just a great way to follow along and use the information going forward. You also get entered to win a coaching call with me. So if you comment or just say hello today, anything that gets you entered, and then signing up on the playlist or the playbook gets you entered as well. So this is all about prepping for year end and it not being a total S show. So we'll get to that in a second, but first just want to say if you're in the US, hi Erin, thanks for joining today. If you're in the US, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. We stayed here in town in Charleston. It was great. It was also very tiring just having the kids home. They were home for a little over a week. My middle child got sick before the break, so extra time home with everyone. But on Thanksgiving, the weather was nice. We went to the beach, let the kids run around, let the dog run around. So I hope y'all had a great vacation as well if you're doing that. So pop in the comments. I know, Erin, we're just getting started, but if you have questions or comments along the way, let me know. Keep my it gets really frizzy, my hair. It just rained here, so my hair gets a little crazy. But this is something that's so important to me because if you know me, if you know my background, it's in accounting. Like I majored in accounting in undergrad. I worked in public accounting. I got my CPA. I'm still a certified public accountant. I don't use it for anything that I do, but I keep it active because it was such a pain to get. And I like people to know that I do know what I'm talking about. So I started my business 7 years ago. It was initially bookkeeping for the first 5 years. So that was all I did. I had, 3 babies. So that was just what I did. Nighttime and night nap time was doing the bookkeeping. And so now we've grown. We have 3 bookkeepers with us supporting our clients today. Some of our clients we've had from the very beginning. They were like my ground zero clients and they're still with us today. And it's just so fun to see them grow too. And now it's turned more into an advisory role and really helping people become more profitable because I saw that was an issue with just the bookkeeping, that they didn't know what to do with the numbers. They didn't know what to do with the report. So that's why I love to use both kind of hats that I have. Like a lot of coaches don't have that background and I can really support clients so well because I know the back end and I know how to look at numbers and clean up their QuickBooks, and we support them in that way. So that's kind of my background and why I love talking about this time of year. So if you know me, you know my framework is mindset, strategy, organize, implement. So that's kind of how we're going to have this conversation today. So I'm just going to pull up the playbook so I don't miss anything. But this conversation is heavily in the strategize, organize piece. And so we will get into the nuts and bolts of that, and please be sure to ask questions. I really want to support you here. I know that I know QuickBooks like the back of my hand and I love it, and I've been doing this for years, but that's not the case with everyone. So if you have questions, please let me know. The first thing obviously I love to start with is mindset. And that's really just checking in with your intentions this time of year. I named this class, prepare for year end without being a shit show. Because I'm already feeling anxiety about December just from my kids are going to be in school. We've got 19 days before we essentially I take off work for Christmas vacation. And it just feels like a lot has to be done. And then things at their schools, and then we're preparing gifts and, getting stuff set up. I'm just getting anxious thinking about it. And so getting really intentional this time of year. My husband and I sit down and we're like, what are the Christmas things that we want to do? And obviously the things at their school, we're going to do those, but there's some things downtown. There's 4 different parades in town. There's lights everywhere we could go see. There's just so many things. And so we're really getting intentional about setting okay, what do we want to do? And that's just from the personal perspective and from the business perspective. So setting the intention with my business is making sure that everything's kind of buttoned up for next month, that my clients are really aware of when I'm going to be gone and not able to support them. And then also in terms of getting 1099s in January. So we'll do another one next month about 1099 specifically, but I start sending out engagement letters for that soon. We start wrapping up how many people are they going to file for. We start getting all that done now. So it's really setting up that intention to like prepare us for later on. And this is just something that takes like 2 to 5 minutes. Picture how you want this season to be. Like I think of, a few things that I want to do with my family. I think of the things in my business that need to get done. And like, that's my priority. I also think about how I want to feel. Like I want to feel really joyful and really peaceful and like really enjoy the holidays with my family. And so I think that's just a good intention to set. And, you can share that with your family and friends. You can share that with, people in your business and your team. I think just having that line of communication is just so important. So that's what I try to do. Let's see, anything else I want to think of there. I volunteered with my daughter's school on Monday, so we went and saw the Nutcracker. So that's one of those things that like is just something I love doing every year, and it really kind of sets the stage for the rest of the season. And I'd love to hear, whether you celebrate Christmas or something else. I know we have people all over the world here, so whatever you celebrate or whatever is important to you, if you want to just drop in the comments, I think it's fun to know like kind of how you like to start off your season. And like the Nutcracker just like triggers in my brain that it's like Christmas season and holidays, and I just think it's really fun. So, if you'd love to share that, I'd love to hear it. But that's kind of the first part about this. Setting that intention for what you want it to look and feel like personally and in your business. Writing it down, sharing it with people, just taking like a bird's eye view of your calendar and just seeing like, okay, if I need to have my engagement letters back by this date, then I need to send them at this date, and just like seeing that flow in your business and kind of mapping back like when you need to start doing stuff. Another thing is like my CPA renewal happens in December. So I've got everything done for that. Like all my continuing education's done. I've got it all documented. I've got all the forms filled out. So as soon as they send me that email, it's ready to go. That's just part of like, the first couple of years of my business, I think that email caught me by surprise, and now it's like I expect it, I'm prepared for it, and it's ready to roll. So I think part of this is being in business and knowing your business and kind of this season of what to expect. But setting that intention is kind of the first step. So another mindset piece I'd love to talk about is not checking out this time of year. I see it all the time with business owners that I'm talking to. They really think of like January as like the trigger for when they're like going to go hard in their business, or they're waiting until January to do something. And I really see people lose so much momentum doing that. If you just, and I'm not saying like, we'll talk about that in a second, but if you just stop in December, like doing sales activities or doing lead gen, like that's just a lot in December that you've lost. Like you have to start over and you have to build that momentum again. And it just like, you can do it, but it's just so frustrating in January when you think you're going to like go all hard, and it's really just like, you're just making up for lost time. So I think, the I'll start in January is just such a losing place to start. And not that it's like, not making it wrong, but just taking that mindset of like, I can still keep going now. I can still keep selling every day. I can still keep showing up every day. Granted, it might look different, and definitely for a couple weeks while we're on vacation, like we have that all planned out so that like, I'm not like showing up and my social media manager needs something from me while I'm on vacation. Like we've got it all laid out, and it will look a little bit different, but it's still like we're not losing that momentum. So I think of it as like diet and exercise. Like this time of year, if you're just like giving up through the holidays, like you like are set back behind in January. Like you've like could have done some damage, not done some damage, but you just have more weight to lose if you just kind of gave up on what you're eating and working out. So that's, I think, just something to think about. Like, we're not going to do that to our bodies, and we definitely don't want to do it to our business. Like I've got a screen pulled up on my computer now. It's like a new workout that I was like, a fun thing to do in December would be to try a new workout and like kind of get remotivated with that before the holidays and during the holidays, so that it's kind of exciting. And so that's just something you can take in business too, to just not lose motivation, but like, how can I make this a little bit exciting this time of year, and a little more fun, and stay in it and really not lose momentum? So I was thinking of a client example. Looking at my notes. So another thing is staying intentional. So we can definitely relax this time of year, like I said, but really relax is different than giving up. So making sure that things need to be done are still getting done, that you have a process laid out and some systems to support you in that. But making sure you're getting exposure, selling, and people still need what you're offering this time of year. even though it might look a little bit different, you know, it's still like people still need the same things. So really thinking of like, how can I still show up and sell to them, even though like it might be a busy time of year. So an example that I have that's a client is she has, you know, she's selling to her customers, and a lot of her customers are saying, you know, I don't want to start this time of year, and, you know, I'll just wait till next year. And so her job would be to look at, okay, like where can I meet them where they are? So we started with a Black Friday deal that was something that they could do on their own. So it's a smaller price point. It kind of leads into the bigger package, and it's something they could do now. It's a great gift that their friends and family could give them because it has to do with people getting into a certain type of school. So it's something that like people who are in school don't have a lot of money. And so like it's a great gift for their family and friends. So that's just something that like people are still buying, but you could kind of promote it a little bit differently this time of year. So for her, you know, it was definitely like promoting like your friends and family can buy this as a gift for you. And then you can start that like program in January, or you can start it over the holidays while you're out of school and taking a break. So just thinking about like for your business, how that applies. I know with mine, I'm doing free calls all the time. And so a lot of people are jumping in on those free calls now because they do want to start offering things in January. And so it really helps lay the groundwork now for like, okay, in January, I'm going to be offering this. And what does that look like? So that's definitely the mindset piece. Let me know if everyone's quiet today, but I really want y'all to get what you need. So please feel free to ask questions, leave comments. So the strategy piece is that, you know, no matter where you are in business, this year-end prep process is for you. So even if you are seasoned and you've been in business a long time, like definitely getting really clear on your systems and processes in year-end is just like super important. And then also just as a new business, even if you don't really have much revenue, like you're going to be growing. Like that's the point of being in business. Like all the clients I work with, they might start really low, but then like we are setting up systems and processes so that when they do grow, it's not built on a house of cards that just all falls apart. Like setting up these foundations, and this is why I love having my background that I do to support clients, because I can see it from that like place that maybe they can't, just because they don't have a lot of expenses, they don't have a lot of revenue, they don't have team, they're not really thinking about paying themselves and saving and taxes and all this stuff. And it's just a really beautiful place in the beginning to start strong so that it's easier later on. So the back end of business exists. We need to take care of it. Like that's just a fact. And so making sure we use that to our advantage and we have good numbers and good reports and good data so that we can have like metrics and we can use that information going forward is just so important for the growth and health of our business and for tax season. Like I had a client that, you know, I love telling everybody this because she told me, she said, you know, I saved her marriage because she didn't do anything for her books. And at the end of the year, her husband was trying to like file their taxes with TurboTax, and it was just a mess, and it was just painful and not fun. And so like once she got that process down, like it took a little bit of lift and effort in the beginning, but now it's just seamless every year, and it's just something that they go through and it's done. Like it's not a big deal. So, you know, I bring that like the back end does exist. Even if you're a baby company, it will exist even more. And so setting yourself up for success now will just be a repeatable process later on. So that's why I wanted to make this a masterclass so that you could have this playbook and really have these steps every year, because it's just so important to come back to and to do every year. So I think it's just important to say like the back end of business exists, and I think mindset is so important. Like these two go together and they work together. And so it's not either mindset or focusing on numbers, like it's literally both. And that's how we get to do that with the systems we set up and prepping for year end and like setting up that strategy around both, because like I love some mindset work. I love some journaling. I love some tapping. I love affirmations and visualizing. Like I love all of that stuff. And like my accounts still need to be correct to get my CPA to file taxes. Like, yes, I'm a CPA, but I'm not a tax person. Like that, there's just so much in that, like it's not worth my time to keep up with. So we just have somebody file our taxes, but like everything needs to be correct so that I can hand it over to them. So, you know, that's just kind of what I'm saying. Like we can be very woo and we can be very into the energetics and, you know, feeling things and visualizing, and like the data and the numbers still need to be there because it's the IRS. You know, if you're in the United States, like you got to pay federal and state taxes. I mean, some states don't have taxes, but you have to do your federal return. And so like, let's make sure that it's correct. We don't want you over-reporting revenue. We don't want you under-reporting expenses. Those are kind of the two big things. And we'll get into that in just a second. But, you know, part of the strategy piece that I love to talk about is like, there's no secret to this. It's literally like, year-end prep happens all year. Like, I say that all the time, and it's just so true. Like, you can prepare at the end of the year and it be a shit show, and some people might love that adrenaline rush. I don't. Most of the clients I work with don't. They have families, they have a, you know, very thriving business, and they just don't have time to deal with the year-end shit show of just like entering everything and reconciling. Like, you know, we don't work with clients like that. Like, all of our clients get monthly stuff done through the year, because I've learned like the people that love that hustle at the end of the year, like, they're just not my people. So we just don't support them. But really, like, if you want a nice year end, making sure that you're like doing everything month to month is just like the best strategy. And it's also the biggest tax loophole. You know, I say like tax loophole, like everyone's always looking for like the thing to save them taxes, and like, how do I save money on my taxes? And it's literally taking care of your books and making sure everything's correct. Like, that's literally it. You can talk to any CPA and they're like, that is the main loophole, is just having your shit together and your revenue being correct, your expenses being correct. Like, that is the biggest thing. We worked with a client who was not entering correctly into QuickBooks, and so he would send invoices through QuickBooks, and then in the banking section, he would enter that deposit as revenue. So he was like over-reporting his revenue by like $50,000 just because he wasn't correctly matching the deposit in the bank to the invoice in QuickBooks. So those are just simple things that people like don't realize that they're doing, but like over-reporting revenue by 50 grand could be a substantial increase in your taxes. So that's just something, and maybe next year I'll have like a CPA on or something to talk about it. But you know, I love talking to CPAs and hearing what they're, you know, trying to tell their clients, and that's literally it. It's just to like, and obviously work with them to mitigate like taxes, you know, in a legit way, but having everything set up for them to just hand over to them, it just makes it so much more simple. So let's see, you know, and if you don't love bookkeeping, because I know that's not something that everybody loves, like I love doing it, but you know, even if that doesn't look like you loving bookkeeping, just still setting up a process every month. And like, we'll go through the steps in a minute, but like figuring out every month what needs to be done and setting up a system for that. And then maybe even handing that over to someone, you know, or if you just don't want to set up a system, like talk to a bookkeeper, you know, and let them do it. It makes the process, because if you set up the systems around it, it makes the process easier to hand off to someone else. And, you know, when you do get a bookkeeper, you're not trying to like build the plane and like hand it over to them at the same time. If that makes sense. So it just helps you with like your brain and what needs to happen every month in your business, and like knowing like, okay, on this day, you know, at the beginning of the week, I'm always making sure I enter everything. And then by the, you know, first week of the next month, I make sure that I reconcile everything, or I'm following up with these items. Just setting it like, you could have a Word document, you could have like things on your calendar, like, so it sets notifications and reminders or whatever. We use Teamwork, so it's very like checklist oriented. So we have who needs to do what by whatever date. So it's a task, it's assigned to someone, and it has a due date. And so that's just like a really easy way for us to track like who's doing what and when. So coming up with a system that works for you is just so important. And then if you have that system, it'll be really easy to hand it over to someone else, instead of them trying to come in and fix a big mess, because that does cost more money. And definitely with your taxes, if your books are a mess and your CPA has to fix that stuff, like they're going to charge you more just because their rate is higher than like a bookkeeper would. So it will save you money in the long run, because CPAs a lot of times just don't have time to fix it, and their rates are going to be higher if they do have to fix it. So paying someone continually through the year, it just sets you up so that you know your numbers in real time through the year, and it will just save you later for those like tax prep fees. So yeah, that's the thing I like to tell about that. So talking about a schedule, I also love having like content on a schedule and how often you're selling on a schedule. So that's something I definitely talk with my clients. I was talking with a client, like one of my long-term one-to-one clients this morning. We were really getting clear on like her social media schedule. She's been doing it for so long that she's just kind of been like all over the place. So we really got clear on like topics and what she's posting when she's selling, when she's posting fun stuff, like all of that. And so that's just like one of those things that's a process in your business, same as the bookkeeping end and the monthly stuff. I love like taking brain decision fatigue out, because if you're always like, well, I need to do this, or when should I do this? Like just knowing that like every Monday is my Money Monday, and I'm looking at my books, I'm entering everything. If the statements are out, I can reconcile them, like just having that day, or Finance Friday, or whatever that looks like for you. Just making sure that like you have it on a schedule so you can set it and forget it, for lack of a better word. It just makes it so much easier and you don't wonder when it's going to get done. I've been having a lot of meetings this week, so I've been talking a lot, so I feel like my voice is going. And this also is another example of an intensive I did recently. So I started her bookkeeping software. She didn't have anything set up. So we set it up, and then in our intensive, we trained her on it. And we really gave her like a good checklist of what she needed to do every week and every month. So she can change the process if she wants to, like whatever fits her schedule. But really we like set up the foundation and gave her this like personal one-to-one training and like what she needed to do in her business. Because there's tons of like YouTube videos out there about QuickBooks Online, and like they're great. Like if you have like a specific thing you're trying to figure out, like, I mean, hands down, like Hector Garcia does great videos. So like, I'm not discounting those at all, but just doing like for you, for your business, there may be some things that just like are not applicable to what you do. And so making sure you have someone that knows that and gets everything entered correctly. And, you know, you're not doing things that you don't really need to do because some online video said that you did. That's just really important. So just felt like that was important to speak to. So that was kind of the mindset and strategy piece of it. So now we're going to go into the organized piece. And this is the thing with having the playbook. You have these 4 items, and then we have like a bonus thing. So this is for you to have to go forward. And if you're catching this now or on the replay, please feel free to like ask specific questions. Like that's like, I love specific questions. And I try to keep these 4 things to be pretty simple so that they apply to pretty much everyone. We have clients that we do more than this for, but they are definitely the outliers. And I wanted this to be kind of more like applicable to everyone. So that's what we're talking about today. But if you have something weird, you know, feel free to reach out. Again, I'll do my best to answer, because sometimes it's easier to like see someone's books and like see what they're talking about. But like I love like talking bookkeeping stuff. So feel free to ask away. So now we're getting into it. Number 1, is definitely checking in with your CPA, your CFP, updating them with revenue and net income. So a lot of our clients and a lot of businesses we work with do like estimated tax payments through the year. So those are, you know, the end of the year you file your taxes and you pay your income tax return. Then through the year, if you're not like an S Corp or corporation, if you're not on payroll, you're taking owner draws. So if you're doing that, you need to pay quarterly estimated taxes, because basically if you're an employee and you're paying through payroll, your payroll taxes are paid like every time that you get a paycheck. But if you're taking owner draws, they are not. And the government doesn't want to wait the whole year to get that money from you. So that's why they have the estimated tax payment. So making sure that you have been on track with those and documenting that you've paid those. And that's just a really good time to check in with your CPA and make sure like, oh, you know, like I've been paying these, but my income is like doubled since last year. So I don't know if these amounts are really like technically going to cover me as much. You still have like a safe harbor amount. So if you've been paying at least like, maybe it's 110%. I mean, I don't remember all the rules, but it is like a safe harbor, so that even if you've been paying those estimated amounts, even if it turns out they weren't enough, you've been paying what you thought would be due based on last year's. But it also to check in with your CPA and let them know, like, because they're going to be able to say like, yeah, your liability is going to go up a lot. And so making sure you can kind of sock away some of that cash, because you know that like they can kind of see like, okay, your revenue went up way more than we were thinking it would. And so definitely be sure you have a little bit more cash available. Also checking in with the CFP, because that definitely makes a difference for like your SEP. So, you know, a SEP is something, usually I think it's S Corps that can contribute to it, but there's like a certain amount of your either revenue or net income. I think it's like 25%. So you can kind of check in with them and let them know your numbers so that they can give you an idea of what that contribution will be, because that's really like the clients that we give those numbers to, the CPAs or the CFPs. It's the CPA and the CFP both need it, but we're just kind of like the people giving the information, and they kind of like talk and figure out who's going to do what and what it's going to be. But, you know, we're in conversations with both of them, but really talking about like, okay, this pretty much needs to happen like right after the year ended. Like the first weeks of January are usually when we are talking to CFPs and CPAs about this. I don't know exactly what the deadline is off the top of my head, but that's something like you need to know that your books have been updated all year long so that you can look at that revenue and net income number and know that it's pretty good. Like if you've got a mess of transactions that like aren't entered or, you know, are double, like you really can't trust that number, and you really shouldn't contribute to your SEP based on that number. If you're over reporting revenue because you haven't, you know, correctly matched the invoices to the deposits, then it's just like you're contributing to your SEP based on a false number. I don't know exactly what happens when you do that, but I just know it's not good. And I know like CFPs and CPAs probably would just be like, don't contribute to your SEP if you don't have a good number to base it on. You just might miss out on that. Another good conversation to have is talking about entity selection. So if you've been an LLC, that's kind of like, you know, just the basic thing that most people set up. You can talk to your CPA about selecting filing as an S Corp. So that's different than like totally changing to an S Corp. When you totally change to an S Corp, that means your EIN changes, like the whole structure. Basically, it's a whole new business. Whereas when you take the S Corp election on your taxes, it's like checking a box, you're filling out some forms. I'm kind of going through the process now personally. And you're taking the S Corp election. So you keep the same EIN, a lot of things stay the same, but you do, you know, fall into like you need to have like certain meetings, and like I have to put myself on payroll for that. But there are benefits of that. So it's just a matter of like talking to someone about that. And a lot of businesses, my lips are dry. A lot of businesses start as LLCs, and then as they grow, it's just a really great way to like mitigate taxes, because you can pay yourself, you know, you have to do payroll, but those payroll taxes are business expenses, so they lower your net income and your taxable income. There's also the like 401k you can set up on yourself and just have that piece so that you can save for retirement in a different rate, because the Roth definitely, I think it's like the $6,000 limit, but then when you hit a certain income amount, like last year I maxed out my revenue, and so I couldn't even contribute the whole $6,000 because like it was something weird, and like I could only do a portion, like $4,000 or something. So definitely like talking to your CPA, CFP about that. It's just something, if your revenue, like so many people that I know in business, you know, we're doing great, and that's just amazing. And so talking to your CPA and CFP. Hi, Allison. Thanks for joining. Yes, Erin, thank you. Yes to retirement savings. Yeah, it's something that LLCs are very limited with. And again, I'm not like in this world and know all the minutia of it, but making sure that you're like doing what you can. So when I maxed out in my Roth, I had talked to my CFP about doing a SEP. So that was the route I'm going this year. And then I guess when I do an S Corp, then I can do the 401k. So making sure like after that, I just want to pick it and stick it. Like I don't want to like be changing everything. But it's so important to like talk to them about like, okay, I was a little baby LLC and now I'm growing and growing and growing. And like, we got to make some big girl decisions here with like what that's going to look like. So Erin, if you want to talk about that at all, please feel free. Is that something that's like up your alley that you like, or maybe you could share some amazing information, because I know the basics of this, but I would love to hear more if you have any. And Allison, please feel free to ask questions. We're getting into the meat and potatoes with this. I talked mindset and strategy before that, but now number one was checking in with your CFP and your CPA. So we'll get into number 2, which is making sure your accounts are reconciled. Like, it's so basic, but basically every account you have, like checking, savings, line of credit, credit cards, like everything like that, PayPal, like whatever that is, should be entered and reconciled. So Erin says, this year was my first year fully filing as an S Corp and being on payroll. Was able to max out my solo 401k. Amazing. That's so exciting. It's going to be me next year. I feel like I'm taking big strides. I kind of resisted S Corps for a long time because one of my friends who was a CPA was just like, everybody's telling everybody to get one of those and it's not necessarily right for everyone. So I was kind of like not really on board, but I'm really excited about the 401k. Yeah, and being on payroll. So I'm thinking I'm going to use Gusto just because that's who we use for all of our clients, and they just have a really low price and you can do it on autopilot. So I don't know if you have anything to share about payroll and who you use and who you like. I think that's always a good, fun to share that information. But as far as, number 2 with making sure accounts are reconciled. So basically any account that gives you a statement, reconcile it. Even we have clients that have like an auto loan, and so we want the auto loan. Like, I want the statement for that, and I'm kind of a stickler like that. I want the statement every month so we can split out the principal and the interest and make sure that liability balance matches the statements. And again, we have a client that's just like super difficult to get that level of detail from her every month. So it's basically like, okay, the beginning of the year, the liability matches, and at the end of the year, we can kind of just do a journal entry to kind of like separate the principal and interest that was paid that year, which is fine. It's just during the year, it's helpful to see that split because the principal goes to decreasing the liability, which is on the balance sheet, and the interest goes to being actually an expense on the P&L. So on your profit and loss, you can see that split into like an item there. And so I like it. I'm very detail oriented, so I think I like to see that. But if you have any questions about that and technically how to do that, I thought about doing this on Zoom and like sharing my screen and going through it, but I feel like that was probably a little more technical than everybody wanted. But if you have specific questions, just let me know. I love, QuickBooks Online, and it's a matter of like entering everything in your banking section and then, going to that bank account, pulling up your statement, reconciling. So I have like my QuickBooks on one screen, I have my statement on another screen. It's just really easy to like go through and do that. And that really tells you like, did I accidentally record an expense twice? I mean, that's happened to me. Like, I have a receipt from, getting coffee, and I enter it in manually and I attach the receipt to the expense in QuickBooks, but then when it hits the bank, it was like, oh yeah, it changed by like a cent and I misread my writing on the ticket or something. And so making sure those match, like, that way I know that like, okay, this is what actually cleared the bank, and now I just changed this expense in QuickBooks and match it there. That's definitely a big one. And then that shows you too, like, especially we have a client that does a lot of invoicing, and she does big invoices, and so that kind of runs through undeposited funds. And so if we see something that hit or is received as a payment in QuickBooks, but it's not received in the bank, then we always go back and we're like, okay, what happened here? And there have been times, it's happened twice now, when they onboarded a new team member, that payment wasn't run properly. Like, he got the information over the phone or did something, and it literally didn't work. It was like $17,000. So that they didn't know. He closed it out in QuickBooks, but until we compared it to the bank, they didn't know that they actually weren't paid that $17,000. So they had to go back to their customer, and their customers were very lovely about it and got them the money super quick. So it wasn't a problem. But like, who knows when they would have caught that if they didn't reconcile their books every month. So it's just a really big deal in some cases. And I think in all cases, it's a really big deal. Like, making sure like, you actually got paid what you think you got paid, and that way you can see who actually owes you money and keep up with your accounts receivable and who owes you. Making sure you follow up with your customers to pay you. So not only for year-end tax prep, but just every month, knowing like what's outstanding, what you need to collect, that sort of thing. So that is number 2. I'm so dry. I don't know if it's the weather or all my meetings or what. But number 3 is, where is it? Oh yeah, okay, so I kind of touched on this. Oh, I actually have 5, yeah. So now we're on number 3, clearing up any unreconciled transactions. So this is kind of what I was just speaking to. So deposits in QuickBooks that didn't clear the bank. That's just what we were talking about with the client that like received it in QuickBooks. It didn't actually hit the bank. And then, you know, making sure like, did you receive that money? Was it applied to the wrong client? That's happened before too. Like they had multiple invoices for the exact same amount and like someone else's payment was applied to someone else's invoice and it was just kind of a big mess. That's really important. We also had a client who was invoicing in QuickBooks and then when they paid, she'd go and mark it as received and deposit it to the bank. But she was actually taking like a bunch of deposits at a time and depositing to the bank. And so we had entered those deposits as sales, and then she had also marked the invoices as sales. So we had to go through, and it was like opened a can of worms of like, okay, whose deposit is this? Who's matched with this? Like it was just a pretty big mess. But it was super helpful in knowing like who owed her money and just making sure that she wasn't over-reporting that. And that's the other thing let's talk about, lumping with another deposit that's reconciled. So if you're receiving multiple invoices, if you have multiple checks or payments that come in at once, just making sure that they're lumped together. I always like to like have if you're doing old-fashioned invoices, some people just do like a POS system and it's not like applicable. But you know, you receive the invoice in QuickBooks. I put it to undeposited funds, which is a holding account. And then I do make a deposit and transfer all those to the bank together. So each invoice is individually received and then they match the bank. So make sure like whatever bank deposit you have in QuickBooks, you have the bank receipt that matches that. Allison says, thanks for the intel, I gotta run, but wanted to hop on quick. Allison, thanks so much for coming today. And be sure if you watch the replay, ask any questions, that's what I'm here for. Erin says, any recommendation for using Square in QuickBooks? I don't use the invoicing in QuickBooks. It just transfer a chunk of money every day. Let's see, Square in QuickBooks. So do you mean in terms of like linking them together or in terms of like getting paid? Do you send like something out of, because a lot of the people that use Square that we support are like a point of sale system. So like a restaurant or a brewery or some of our service providers use like Stripe and Square where it's like a program or a platform and they just pay for it there. But are you actually sending kind of like a payment link from Square? I guess is my question. But then do I need to have clients listed in QuickBooks for the invoices paid? Yeah, so Erin, is this separate from the Square? Because just for invoicing in QuickBooks, yeah, you have a client, you send them an invoice and then it gets paid. If you're using Square, you don't have to have the client set up there. You can link it. I'm trying to think, like you can, like under the banking section, like if you log into QuickBooks Online, on the left there's banking and then at the top there's apps somewhere, so you can connect it as an app. Yes, I send invoices in Square. Okay, gotcha. Square can just kind of dump, like if you have it connected with the app, it'll probably put like more information in there. Or you just have like it set up as a bank account and then it kind of just like, or I guess it wouldn't be set up as a bank account. It would just be connected to your bank account. So you'd see those Square deposits in QuickBooks. So I think either way, like you could just have it dumped into QuickBooks and you see that revenue. And then you could use Square as like the place where you go get the detail on all that. Let's see, invoices in Square. And something else, I don't know if your clients are people or businesses. That makes sense. I haven't linked them. I've always kept them separate. That all makes sense. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of like, I don't know, like Gusto, it just kind of dumps the payroll journal entry into QuickBooks. And then you go to Gusto and get the detail. So you could do that with Square and just have it dump it there. But if you have lots of different offers that you're trying to track, like which one's doing best or which one's selling the most, then you get that detail from Square. If your customers are businesses, I think Melio is a really good way to send invoices. So you start the invoice in QuickBooks and then send it through Melio. And Melio has like 0 ACH fees. And then if the customer wants to pay with a credit card, you can pass along the credit card fees to them. That's through Melio, but it has to be B2B. It's not a B2C platform. But yeah, let me know if you have any other questions about that. But I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to say about that. I don't have QuickBooks pulled up, and it'll take me, I don't want to make this too long, but I was going to pull up QuickBooks and like look at it exactly. But like, if you do add it as an app at the top, and I think there is a way in Square to link it to QuickBooks. I think you have to do it from the Square side and not QuickBooks, but you can kind of like map it, I think. I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense. But I think the simple thing would just be to like dump it into QuickBooks, call it Square Income, and like call it a day, and then just get those detailed reports from Square. But if you wanted the detail in QuickBooks, you probably have to like link it in the app, map it through Square, just so you could have like the different, like it can kind of pull a sales receipt into QuickBooks. So it just kind of depends. If you have questions later and like want to message me or anything, just let me know. Because I don't know if I'm answering that well enough, but I hope I'm giving you good information. So that's kind of with that. So making sure, yeah, that you've got, you know, whatever point of sale that is coming through, dumping into checking correctly and seeing like that it's, you know, correctly going to the right place. That's exactly what I've been doing. So you answered my questions. Thank you. Thank you, Erin. I'm glad to be here and answer your questions. So yay, I love questions. So we talked about from the deposit side. So the opposite is the expenses. Making sure in QuickBooks, like, did all your expenses clear the bank? So a lot of times checks are the thing that would not clear the bank. Usually if you pay with a credit card, most of my clients aren't doing like bill pays. We do have some. We have some that have huge bill pays. It's a whole thing, and we use Melio for that. But most people just pay with a credit card, and they do a transfer or whatever, and it's not a big deal. But if they are writing checks, making sure that those checks clear. And if not, you know, reaching out to the vendor, did they receive it? Is it a duplicate? Like kind of doing a little detective work. So I think that's where you get to put on your detective work. Like when you go to reconcile your accounts, you want to make sure that everything is checked off. And if it's not checked off, figure out why. So maybe it is just that they got it in the mail, they haven't taken it to the bank, whatever. But like any kind of, you know, ACH transfers, credit card expenses, you know, and your money in, like that should all reconcile. Except money in, you know, maybe the next month it clears. But anything else around that anybody needs? So number 4, so I'm looking at my sheet and I ordered like 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think something with my Word document, but now we're on number 4. So this is when you want to follow up with all your subcontractors. And this is a big thing we're doing right now. One of my bookkeepers and I, we have this big master spreadsheet. We've got all our clients, and we've got like kind of the estimated number of 1099s that they did last year. So we can kind of compare last year and make sure we're on track with this year, like, you know, having everybody, and we're going through and basically like pretending like we're filing so that we can see like who we're missing information from. So that's just something you can do in QuickBooks. So it's just making sure that you have those forms. You can either send the subcontractor an email and ask for their W-9 form. Then you can take it and enter that information in QuickBooks online. You can attach a copy of their W-9 to their or vendor profile, or you can send it directly through QuickBooks. So if you do that, you just want to make sure that the box is checked in their vendor profile for that they receive a 1099, and then you can go, it's like a different section of, I can't think of it off the top of my head. They have like contractors, and you go there and you find the contractor and you send them an email through Intuit to do it. I've had people have trouble with that before, like if they use TurboTax or some other Intuit product, like it won't let them, it's just kind of weird. So sometimes just getting like a paper copy of the W-9 is like all you need. So be sure that you track like how often you request. I think as just a good practice, you should ask for this before you work with someone. And then if you work with someone and they're still not providing that to you, like definitely tracking how many times you followed up, when, because that's something that like they should be reporting that as income. So if they're not, like it could get, you know, potentially the IRS could come to you and say like, why didn't you have this form? Or, you know, why didn't you give them a 1099? And you would have to prove to them like, I tried to get a W-9, you know, they didn't respond or they refused or whatever that is. But ideally you're really not working with people that aren't going to give you one, which people who are legit business will give you a W-9. But that's a big one. And it's just something we're doing. We do it all year long, but especially now at the end of the year, like we've requested, you know, back in April a W-9 and they never got it to us. And now it's like, okay, well, we're really not kidding around. Like, we really need that. If you're paying them less than $600 for the year, is the 1099 required? No. And we will do a whole 1099 live stream in December, but no. So I just like to do it because for some of my clients, like, you never know. Like, they don't know if they're going to pay them $600 through the year. Like, maybe the first payment to them is $200. So it's like, I mean, if it's in January, you probably don't know. I mean, if they're paying them $200 in December, you can probably guess that they're not going to do $600. But and then some years, like, maybe they didn't give them $600 last year, but this year they did. They just barely got over, and you just don't want to be scrambling at the end of the year. I just think it's like a good system to have. Like, I'm all about systems and like taking out decision fatigue. So it's not like, should I ask this person for W-9? Am I going to pay them over $600? Like, this is what we do in our business. Here's the W-9, W-9 request. If you're paying with them a credit card, that doesn't go on their 1099. I don't know why. I don't understand it either. Something to do with a credit card sending like a 1099K. I'm trying to kind of speed up because I know we're getting up on our time. So yeah, so if they're with a credit card, then that's also not a thing. I still just like to have documentation in case maybe I did pay them with a check or something later on. Like, I just kind of like a CYA like that. But not everyone is like me. But yeah, good question. We'll do, I think it's December 7th, we're doing that live stream. And then the last one is make sure Venmo transactions, make sure every Venmo transaction has an actual vendor name and is correctly categorized. So it's like one of my pet peeves when people pay with Venmo and then I get the books, or they're doing their books, or we get it from a bookkeeper and like the vendor is set up as Venmo. I'm like, no, that's not, it doesn't tell me anything. Like, we need to know who it was. Was it Walmart? Was it this? Like, A, for reporting purposes, you need to know which account it is and who the vendor was. And B, if it's a subcontractor, that needs to go on their 1099 because that's definitely cash that they were paid. So making sure, like, because I've seen people use their personal Venmo to pay subcontractors, and that's just like, no. If you're paying them from their business and they're using Venmo, it needs to have the vendor name, the subcontractor name, and then what the expense was. So that's just something we always do with our bookkeeping clients, and I just think it's just the way to go. And putting like a real vendor name on it, even if it's not a subcontractor, just for your year-end reporting. Like, if you're gonna like comb through your P&L, you're seeing like, okay, I'm gonna look at how much I spent on advertising, like sort it by vendor, and then you can see how much you spent on each vendor. And so if you leave it as Venmo, it just doesn't tell you anything. And then the bonus thing is check in with your target revenue. If you had a target revenue for the year, start looking at that now. How are you stacking up? And then using that for 2023 planning. So I hope this helps. We'll go through the 5 things. Check in with your CPA and CFP and get on board with like retirement stuff and tax stuff and your revenue and has it increased and all that stuff. Make sure your accounts are reconciled, clear up any unreconciled transactions, make sure you get W-9s from subcontractors, and make sure every Venmo transaction has a vendor name and is correctly categorized. And then as a bonus, look at your target revenue, how it compares to what you wanted, and then start planning for next year with that. If you're looking at me and you're like, Jordan, I really don't want year-end prep. I really need help becoming more profitable. I really need more help getting in front of my audience, getting in front of other audiences, getting comfortable selling, knowing what my pricing should be, knowing what my packages should be. You know, that's what I really invite you to get my free Get Honest with Your Strategy to Scale call. I'll link that below. But that's really just a great step to talk about all of this. Like, yes, I love doing the bookkeeping and supporting clients in that way, but really that's not the game changer. I mean, definitely it changes things and makes their lives easier, but really like working on revenue. How do we create more revenue? How do we get more clients? You know, most of my people want to be fully booked. They want to make 10K a month. Like, how do we do all that stuff? And if that's what you're really wanting, be sure to book a call. I think I have 2 left for the year. December is just a short month, so that's just kind of how it is. So if you want one of those, I'll link it below. Be sure to grab it. And if you have any questions after this on the replay, you know, if you need to know anything else, that's what I'm here for. I love being here. So Erin, thank you so much. And anybody else who is hopping on and catching the replay, I really appreciate y'all. I know there's a million other places you could be, so be sure to comment. I'll be giving away the coaching session. So I'll see y'all next week, and have a great rest of your week. Bye.